Attention all anchors for ad-free listening, bonus episodes, exclusive merchandise, and the chance to join a future recording of the podcast. You can now sign up for the FFS Club. Just head to our website, f1forsuccess.com. Hello, I'm David Coulthard, and this is Formula for Success. So, joining me, although he is in the south of France, he's not actually in the same room as me, which I saw him yesterday at the pub, and I gave him a wee kiss because I'd missed you, EJ. How are you?
Well, I'm great. Can I give it a little growl first, just for Timo? So, Timo, that's how this normally starts. It's terrible, I know.
Indeed.
And we're going to have a decision as to whether we keep it or not. But yes, DC, I saw, which I saw was remarkable, a change of your drinking habits. You order Prosecco by the bottle nowadays. And Jesus, that's a bit of a change from pints or whiskies or whatever. What's with the Prosecco?
I've gone all Mediterranean chic. I've been here for so long, you see. You know, I noticed you were on the Guinness, though.
But listen, mother's milk. Is that what they say in Ireland? Mother's milk. You just can't get better. Guinness. And actually, that pub is hellishly good, honestly. For a French pub to serve up Guinness in pints like that, I'm well impressed. Guys, it's called The Ship, and it's in Fontvieille, next door to you, DC. And excellent. I'm well impressed.
It's very good. Right, before we go down the route of promoting the Ship and Castle in Fontvieille, later in the show, we're going to reveal the results, actually, of whether the audience want that signature growl to stay or go. The debate has raged on for weeks, and our listeners have voted in their millions, well, maybe thousands, and they're going to decide once and for all. So how do you feel about that, EJ?
Some trepidation, I have to say, that I'm nervous in one way because it's kind of a reflection. Do people, do
they like you?
Love, exactly. Do they like me, number one? Do they like the growl, number two? Because very often they are integrated, aren't they? And suddenly you say, shit, they don't like me anymore. I better get out of here. You find somebody else, DC, who you can abuse and use. But anyway, I'm here at the moment until we find the results of the growl. But fingers crossed, I still hope they like us.
Yeah, well, look, I've got a confession, and I'm going to whisper it. I love you, EJ, even if they don't.
You whispered that too low. I couldn't even hear that, but I assumed that what you said was nice because you're smiling away to yourself.
Look
you're
at that.
pretty pleased with yourself
heart?
at the moment, DC, aren't you? Oh, wow.
Shall we get our guest on?
Yes,
Timo?
please.
Okay, let's go. We have a lot of different guests on this podcast, but a racing guest is always one of my favourites. And unfortunately for this particular gentleman, he's gone through the Eddie Jordan school of racing, but luckily for him, he got away pretty quickly. So it's none other than Timo Glock. Welcome, Timo.
Wow.
Thank you, guys. Super happy to be on the podcast, and I'm not sure how this is going to end up.
No one is sure. It could be anyway.
I think it's going to be one of the funniest ones.
Well, look, I think we've got to get straight into it. So, Timo, you've had a great racing career. You're still getting out on track. Like Eddie and I, you also do broadcasting, working with Sky Germany.
Yeah.
But we've got to take it back to Formula One, which we're marching our way through the 2024 Formula One season. But if we go back to when you marched yourself into Formula One, it was in a Jordan car. Actually ending up with points on your debut, which not many drivers have managed to do because there were some naughty boys out there and a few people got some disqualifications. So I've got to get straight into it. Did Eddie actually pay you your points bonus?
No, still waiting for that one.
Eddie, are you feeling generous?
I'm in the receiving business. I'm not in the giving business. You've always said that, and it's a principle I'll strongly adhere to.
Well, that's not something you want to declare in prison.
I'm still waiting. I mean, my Formula One career went downwards because I'm still waiting for that big payment check I'm getting from that race.
Here's the thing, Timo. You are a rare breed of German in that you've got humour, because we all know that a German joke is not normally a laughing matter, but you have got a great sense of humour. Did that help you? Did that help you when you were dealing with Eddie? How was it actually when you're a young driver arriving in Formula One and you've got this lunatic, who owned the team?
I mean, honestly, I was not really into deep contact with Eddie until the first test, because this was all done by my management, and in the background, I had the sponsor Deutsche Post who helped me out to get into that position, to have at least a test with Eddie, which then ended up really badly for me because I destroyed the car at the end of the day, and
very badly,
completely. I had a test. We had the test in Barcelona, and I jumped out from an F3 car into a Formula One car. And Barcelona is the worst case scenario for your neck. And I was destroyed after half a day of testing. But you want to stay in the car. You want to go until the end of the day. And in Barcelona, we had the last two quick corners at that point, and I just destroyed the car in the last corner. I ended up on the outside curb, lost the rear end, and smashed it into the barrier. And I thought, okay, that was a short chance of Formula One and a short career in Formula One. But at the end, I think the Eddie saw the Deutsche Post sponsor maybe in my background helping out, got another chance. And on the other side, I was quick as well. So I had the chance to get into the 2004 season as a reserve driver. And we had the third car in that year. So on every Friday, I was able to do the free practice. So it was a great chance for me to step up into Formula One. And then, first time meeting Eddie, for me, that was just fun. I just loved it to talk with him, and we had so much fun over the year. It was great time.
EJ, how did you remember that time? And actually, add on to what Timo's just explained there, when you have a driver doing a test for the first time, do you have any clauses put in the management contracts where they pay for any crash damage, or do you just have to take that on the chin?
Well, normally I would have all sorts of precautions and stuff like that, because, it's daunting, isn't it? When you jump out of a Formula 3 car, and you're used to, putting your foot down immediately on the exit of the corner, because the tires and the grip and the wings are able to take all of the aspects of the car. Whereas a Formula One car, really, you have to be really, really gentle, and you have to play with the throttle so as you can actually get the best out of it. So it's a different thing. So Timo was talking about, I think fatigue was the problem. And I'd say that truthfully now is as much my fault as his fault for crashing, because we should have anticipated, here was a young driver new to Formula One in a track like Barcelona. Yes, he's doing really, really quick times and good times, and we were very impressed. But the pressure physically on him was immense. And that's what we're always talking about. It's not quite the same now because the cars are so much heavier. So when you have an agile car where there's so much power to play, it's a very different story. And I think nowadays, with whether it's football or sport, people are able to see where they get to the limit physically, and after that take them out, because you're going to do themselves and the team no good at all, and that was one of the issues. So there's a lot of great stories there, David. I don't want to anticipate what's happening, because I'd rather have Timo tell us what happened after that. We went to Montreal, I think. That was fun.
Yeah, you got points there, and if I just look through your career before we focus on that moments with Jordan, you had 3 podiums over your career. It never really got, let's say, although with the greatest respect to Eddie, he had a car that won Grand Prix on several occasions and came top 3 in the championship, I think a couple of times, EJ. But the rest of your career, you never really got a fair crack of the whip in terms of the machinery you were in. Is that something that's a regret for you, a frustration, or is it just the way it goes?
No, it's not. It's not a frustration at all. It's, as you said, it's the way it goes. I had possibilities. If I think back to my podium in 2009 in Malaysia, if I would have had one more lap, I would have won the race. I was right at the tail of Jensen, and then that heavy rain came down, and they red flagged the race, and it ended up at the end in P3 because the result was from the lap before. So there are a lot of sort of possibilities, which if I would have gone left, maybe it would have been different. If I would have gone right, it would have been different. But that's how it is. And I had a lot of great times in F1, and it's how it is. And I'm super happy that I had the time and the chance to enjoy that as well in 2004. When I came in as a young guy traveling around the world. I mean, that was a great feeling, a great time for myself.
EJ, I'm not sure whether the screen is frozen or if you've had a stroke.
No, I'm listening because, as we know, the way Jordan was, it was driven primarily by finance, and we needed to be sure that we didn't want to be bankrupt heroes, and we wanted to make sure that we got to the end of the season with some fuel in the tank, i.e. money. And we were very fortunate that Deutsche Post were amazing to me, and Hans Bernd, who was his manager, Timo's manager, and they agreed and did a deal, and that's why he was the third driver on the Friday when there were spare cars. And I think that could be a way. Timo, I'm very anxious about not having, I get upset when there isn't new rookies every year in Formula One, and it really does, it annoys me. And I'm trying to figure out ways how we can encourage teams to give young drivers a chance, just like you got the chance. I mean, you were hanging around, you were the third driver in the team, Deutsche Post helped you with that, your manager helped you with that. We had a problem with Pantero, but his money didn't come, and it's pretty vicious life out there. The money didn't come. He doesn't get in the car, get out. And you got in and you scored points in the first race. It was a remarkable story. So why don't the listeners would like to know, what was that like going through your head? Just the emotions of suddenly I'm doing Formula 3, the next thing I'm doing is test in a Formula 1, and then suddenly I'm in Montreal and I'm getting points. Talk us through that, because it's a great story for the people.
That was crazy. I mean, you called me up on Saturday morning. I mean, there was like sort of rumors going around on Friday, between the mechanics. I mean, they were joking around with me. Yeah, be ready. Maybe you need to jump in tomorrow. And I was like, yeah, come on. I'm here as a reserve driver. Giorgio Pantano is here. He's fit. Nick Heidfeld was driving the other car. He was fit. So I didn't see that coming. And in the morning at whatever it was, 8 o'clock in the morning, you called me up and said, Timo, hurry up. You need to come to the track and you drive. And I said, what do you mean I'm driving? No, you do free practice, qualifying, and the race. Giorgio is out. And you hang up. And I was like, what the hell? So I ran in the bathroom, getting ready. And I was like, as long as I was thinking about it, as more nervous I got, I was not even at the track, and I was like shitting my pants, I tell you. I was like so nervous getting into that, coming to the track. Everyone from the press knew already, there's new kid in town, the German broadcasters came, interview here, interview there. And I was just running beside myself, I was like watching myself doing all this stuff. And it was crazy. I mean, the first time I jumped in the car in free practice on Saturday, and then in qualifying, I was like all over the place. I was totally overloaded. I could not even proper concentrating on what I have to do, is driving the car. There was so much going around, and this was all new to me and overloading me. And I think the first time I just came down was like in the second part of qualifying, where I was just like getting into what I have to do, is driving the car as quick as possible. And the same was, the race on Sunday morning. Felt the same way. You come to the track, everything is like, again, there's so much pressure, meeting here, meeting there, strategies. I had no fucking clue what's going on. And I was just happy to be in the car and drive at the end. And, finishing P7 with a bit of luck was just outstanding. I mean, I could have crashed the car in my first race, but at the end, I was mistake-free, didn't do any mistakes, kept out of trouble, and finished the race in P7.
Do you think the fact that Jordan always had a sort of family feel to it, the way Eddie operated, and
Yes.
He's still got pals with some of the mechanics who've risen up into other teams today? Do you think that helped a young driver in that situation?
Absolutely. I mean, the whole team, how I got into the team from day one on as a test and reserve driver, it felt like straight as a family. It was so good. We went out with the mechanics, had fun with the mechanics on the race weekends. Eddie was every time available for me, and it was just sort of coming home. And it felt totally different when I joined Toyota in my first year in 2008. Because that big operation, it's a lot of political stuff in the background going on. I needed a lot longer to feel welcome and felt at home. And with Eddie in 2004, straight away. So that is a big difference as a young driver when you come in, to get respected, to get like the sort of family feeling around it. It gives you a lot more self-confidence. And I think that was, for example, if I jump to Mick Schumacher, this was one problem for Mick. Being in Formula One with Haas, with Günther Steiner, I think that was never felt like sort of a family, sort of traditional team, and that would help him a lot, I think.
Yeah, and then, well, if we sort of look at the sporadic nature of your Formula One career, you were out for a couple of years and then back in with Toyota. Why was that? What's, I haven't sort of Googled the background of why you were in and out. Was it just finance? Was it opportunity?
Yeah, it was at the end just financial problems, let's say, or let's say there were other drivers who had more financial background, more possibilities, and Eddie had to sell the team at the end of 2004, though the new owners in 2005 were not really interested in me as a driver because my financial budget was not as strong as the others. So my management decided to go to America to just get me somewhere else and learn racing the hard way. In 2005 in Champ Car, which is nowadays the IndyCar series, which was a great year of experience. And then 2007 or 2006, there was in the same way was like GP2 introduced the first year, and then we saw GP2 being the strong championship to get back into Formula One. We decided to come back from America in 2007 then, and 2006 and 2007 drove GP2, won the championship in 2007, and then got into Toyota. But this was all not that easy, like I said it right now. It was just like immense pressure in 2007 because Toyota wanted me to win the championship. Without winning the championship, I would have not got the seat. So, and there was a lot of stories in the background. I was like leading the championship in GP2 with 30 points. And then in the second part of the year, we had a lot of mechanical problems. Didn't finish races. And I came to the final race in Valencia being 2 points ahead of Luca Di Grassi. And just won the championship and secured my F1 seat with Toyota.
I'm curious, actually. Sorry, EJ, I'm sort of hogging the questions here. Hold your hand up if you want to join in at any point, or at least keep moving so I know you haven't passed away.
I'm alive. I'm here.
You're alive.
I'm intrigued.
Excellent.
The thing is, this is a great example, David. Even for your son and so many other kids doing karting, that, we look at the Michael Schumachers and we look at we talked about earlier, Nico Rosberg or Lewis Hamilton. They're the sort of the dream tickets. But I'm loving listening to Timo because this is a real fight for survival. He started and he got a leg up through testing the car at Jordan, and then he had that success with scoring points in his first race, and then losing it and having to go to America, which is no hardship in the first place, but then coming back and try to reestablish himself. This is perfect for our listeners because drivers, please listen to Timo because you have to believe. And that's what he did. And he kept going on. So I'm intrigued by this. So David, please continue.
Well, the Toyota time, they came in, this big fanfare of investment, doing it in Germany, which I guess for you was somewhat convenient to be there. But the reality is it was probably the wrong location to bring the sort of the talent pool of Formula One. It tends to be mainly in the UK. And then the employment regulations in Germany are a lot more stringent than maybe as you've experienced in motor racing. People work all hours that are necessary to get the job done. So did you already kind of feel like this is my opportunity now, I want to make the best of it, but it's always going to be difficult just geographically where they'd positioned themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I never had this really on my radar that this could be a problem for us, because when I walked in at Toyota and in the first time, I remember that really well, mid of December when we signed the contract, I was there in the night because they didn't want to or they didn't want that too many people are seeing me before it get announced. So we were like walking through the facilities and then driving with the bike from facility to facility because it was so big, and there was like everything you can imagine of to build a Formula One car, to build a winning Formula One car. We had 2 wind tunnels. We had every bloody R&D thing which you can think of. Everything was there, and I was just shocked by the company and what pressure that means to me. You know, like I'm out there to drive that F1 car and representing Toyota as a manufacturer, plus all the 1,200 people which were working in Cologne. And that was just the overloading thing at the beginning. And but I realized at the end very quickly that the problem was at Toyota, not the people. They were really, really good. It was decision-making progress. Decision having to be done very quickly took us far too long to decide things. We had like upgrades on the car, which were sort of in the gray area, and then it got stopped by Japan. So they had everything to double check with Japan, and we had like, I remember that one rear wing which was sort of stalling at the right time, sort of a DRS effect. We were running this already straight line testing, and it was ready to go, and it gave us like half a second at least. And they stopped it in Japan because it was just in the gray area, and they said, no, we don't want to be disqualified. We cannot go in that direction. So, you know, things like this just stopped us to make that last step. Even so, the 2010 car would have been a really, really good car. Definitely, I know that from guys from Toyota moved to Ferrari at that time when Toyota stopped in 2009. You know, they had the exact aero numbers, and we were like 10 to 15 points ahead of Ferrari in 2000 with the 2010 car, but the 2010 car never saw a racetrack. So, you know, there are a lot of things where, when I think back, I would have loved to drive the 2010 car because I think that would have been a contender for definitely a top 3.
It's interesting you say that about too long to make decisions. That's what I felt. Yeah. The Jaguar team that became Red Bull, when they were owned by Ford, they would have to go to Detroit, present their ideas, come back. And I was, with my experience of Williams and McLaren, absolutely convinced you're always going to be behind the curve if you cannot have an idea, commit to it, and put it on the race car as quickly as possible. And EJ, I suspect this is something that with your time in team ownership, when budgets, you had to allocate a tight budget all the time. So how were you, Eddie, when it came to your engineers saying, look, this is a grey area? Because to me, grey areas, it's Adrian Newey famously says, he reads the regulations to see what they don't say.
Exactly.
Because if you only design to what they say, you end up with the same car as everyone else. You've got to operate in the grey. EJ, would you concur, or do you have some examples of where Jordan innovated by being in the grey area?
We loved the grey area because what we would do, Gary Anderson was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, when I talk about Adrian Newey, I also think about Gary because he was my Adrian Newey. Gary was so on the case. He said, EJ, what do you think of this? And I said, well, explain the downside and explain the upside. He said, this is what it says, but this is our interpretation. I said, well, actually, why don't we just ring Charlie, and Charlie was in charge of the FIA, and we asked him, tell him we're going to do this, we're going to see it, what is your interpretation of the legalities? And he would often say to us, he said, look, I can see where you're coming from, I understand the interpretation, however, if it's penalised or if it is protested, I'm not sure you get away with it. So we knew that it was on the cusp every time we went down that route because you had to. You know, the big guys, and that's something I'm going to come back to Timo in a minute. You know, you look at Renault when they ran their own team, you look at BMW when they ran their own team, and you look at Toyota, they all were hopeless, bearing in mind the access to cash, money, and facilities. Look, Timo just said that they had 1,200 people, and that was a 2010 or 2000 and whatever. It's just ridiculous the amounts of, resources that they had compared to smaller teams. So you look at what Ken Tyrrell achieved to a much smaller way, Jordan, McLaren, of course, with Ron Dennis and Frank Williams with Williams. That's why the small, nimble little teams based in the UK with the the engineering experience and the nous. And remember, most of our people would have driven karting, Formula Ford, Formula 3, Formula 3000 or Formula 2, whatever it was, and they were then in Formula 1. So it's a different kind of person. So the decision-making was always instant. We'd have to make a decision. But then the great thing, which is what I always said, we never had to answer to anyone. It was just internal. So if it was going to be quick and positive, let's do it. And that's why Timo is talking about it. But he's seen both hands. He's seen, life at Jordan and life at Toyota. They're completely two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Yeah, so Timo, beyond that incredible facility that Toyota have, which I think some of the teams, McLaren and others, are still using their wind tunnel facilities now. So it shows how far ahead of the game they were. And then, of course, beyond that, you find yourself in Virgin or Marussia. And then that must be so kind of soul-destroying in a way, because you're in a small team that is basically scraping to just make the grid.
Absolutely. I mean, this was that was the toughest time for me, because I had a signed contract ready to sign up with Renault in end of 2009 into 2010. And then there was we were ready to sign this in Abu Dhabi at the final race. And then I had a chance to talk to Martin Whitmarsh at McLaren, and they were interested to talk to me in terms of German driver, German manufacturer, with Mercedes in the background. So we were talking, and I tried to delay the signing with Renault for a couple of days to see what's possible with McLaren. And at the end of the day, I was just a couple of days too late, because Renault decided to pull out of the championship. And I was there and had nothing in my hands anymore. And I had a signed contract ready to sign up with Renault. On the other side, McLaren. Then they decided to pair up with Lewis and Jensen in 2010, if I remember right. So I was out of that talk, and then suddenly my Renault option was gone, and I had no other chance to sign up. And then that possibility with Virgin came up. They called me up and said, "Would you be interested?" And I said, "Yeah, that's my only chance to stay in F1." And if you think back where 2010 the 2010 Renault or Lotus car was, there was another point where I lost my chance to be in a competitive F1 car. That was tough to take.
Yeah, I was going to say, how, is that a sort of soul-searching type scenario? How did you deal with that? Because if I look at my own journey, I came in under horrible conditions, the loss of Ayrton and Roland Ratzenberger, starting Formula 1, but I was into a competitive car straight away. And then I go to McLaren for 9 years, competitive car. And then it was only really Red Bull that was the least competitive at that time, as they were going through the building phase. So I realized and recognize how lucky I've been in my journey. How, for you, how do you sort of compartmentalize the missed opportunities, if you like, and how do you deal with that today? You're still a young guy, you're 42, I believe, same age as Fernando Alonso, who's signed again another couple of years.
I don't know. I just got on with it. I had no really time, not really time to reflect on it. And if I would have been negative about it, I would have, I would have stopped my career, I think. And I just kept believing that there will be another chance to stay in F1 if if I have the chance. But, you realize when I drove the first year with Virgin, we were like 4.5 seconds off the pace per lap. And you got left after 10 laps nearly. So, and of course it was, I could have been negative about it, and it could have been, why did I not do this decision? But I decided it doesn't make sense to look back. So I tried to look forward, tried to stay positive. And at some point, I was in the position in 2012 where I said, okay, listen, at the moment, there is no chance to have or to move to a top team or to a better team in F1. I need to see what's possible outside of F1. And there was DTM in Germany. I mean, you drove it, the championship. And I was looking in that direction, and I prepared myself in my head that this could be my last year in F1. And I needed to look somewhere else and needed to think about, this is my job. I need to earn money with it. So if I have no chance in F1, you need to move somewhere else. And that's how I approached the whole scenario and the whole situation. And I think that helped me out to still stay positive in my mind. And, there is a reason why I made decisions, and this is life, and you cannot wind back or rewind and try to do it differently. It's how it is, and you need to get on with it, and that's how I deal with it, and it worked out, and I have no problem to look back and see, if I would have been in that Renault, and if I would have done this and this. That's how it is. That's how life is, and I'm super happy now that I joined DTM for 10 years, and now I'm back in Formula One on the other side of the microphone. That's a very interesting job to do, and it's fun. It's great to talk about the sport you love, and I really like that. I have no regrets to what happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah, well, look, that's absolutely fantastic to hear. Talking about the sport we love, we couldn't talk to you without reflecting back on the Lewis Hamilton, Felipe Massa scenario. I'm sure you get asked about this nearly everywhere you go. You were just doing your own race, but somehow your name gets pulled in to what has become something that I feel it's more than the sort of financial scenario that could be benefited for Felipe in challenging that championship result. I feel that it's sort of mentally eating away at him, that for a very brief moment he was the world champion, but as we know, the checker flag falls for everybody. And by the time the race had finished, Lewis had overtaken you at we call it the last corner in Brazil, but as we both know, in wet conditions, that corner continues and continues and continues. We saw Fernando Alonso crash on that much later. We've seen Mark Webber crash there, and a number of drivers. It's a difficult, long turn. But him, with Lewis overtaking you, it led to him getting the points necessary to secure his title. And you're innocently doing your race, and you get kind of pulled into it. Tell us about it.
I mean, this was I think the craziest half a year I went through after the race. And of course, the moment when that happens, I had no clue where I was. I mean, they were telling me, listen, Timo, we were like in the race. I think we were P9 and 10 or even out of the points. I can't remember exactly. And then, we saw that rain coming, and the team decided, hey, man, we have nothing to do. Let's stay out. Everyone goes on intermediates. Let's stay out. And I said, guys, it's still dry enough to keep on going with the groove tires. And then I saw this cloud coming over towards that last corner, and it was like 3-4 laps to the end. And I said, guys, I think it's gonna hit us in the last 2 laps. And I think and with the groove tires, if there is like a bit of rain coming and they cool out, you have zero grip. So I was going around in the second to last lap. And it was already raining in the last corner. I said, guys, I need to come in. I will not survive the last lap. There is no chance. So they said, Timo, you cannot come in, because they were building up the fences already around the podium. And the people were freaking out that the pit lane was blocked, a bit like in Baku I think last year. So I could not, I had to stay out. I wanted to come in to get onto intermediates, because I said, guys, it's impossible that I will survive the lap. And I had to stay out at the end. You see if you see the onboard, you know what I'm talking about. It was just driving on ice, and I just tried to keep the car on track and survive. And a lot of cars passed me, and I thought, okay, that's it. But there were a lot of lapped cars in between, and didn't really pay attention when Sebastian and Lewis overtook me. And then I was driving back to the pits, and funny enough, Lewis just parked in front of me, and my engineer just told me, listen, Lewis won the championship, but he didn't tell me that I was the guy who decided the championship. So what I do, I go to Lewis, congratulate him and say, hey, well done, blah, 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 walk off, and this whole camera guys and journalists run down towards me, and I just moved to the side because I thought they all want to go to Lewis. They come to me and ask me those questions. Was this on purpose? Why did you let by Lewis? And I said, what the hell is going on? I don't know. What do you mean? I mean, I just drove my race. No. This was on purpose. We just saw it. Why did you let Lewis by? Felipe was champion. Da, 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 da. And then my physio grabbed me, pulled me back to the pits. I took my helmet off, and he explained me what happened. And I said, okay, shit. And from that moment on, it was like a freak show. I mean, I was going to the airport by police escort because they were like sort of scared that the Brazilian people going mad at me. So they brought me into the plane with police escort in Germany. It was crazy. I got like my parents got letters really badly written about myself, about I should be killed, I should be banned from racing, blah 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 blah. And it was really really scary for a long time until Formula One released the onboard, and then after the people saw what happened, everything calmed down a bit. But in the first couple of weeks and months after the race, I was scared to actually go out of the house, and then thinking about going to Brazil for the F1 race, I was like, no, I'm going to skip that race. I'm not going there.
Yeah,
So that was a crazy time, really crazy.
Amazing, because nothing really happened like that before, where an innocent party gets so much abuse. And we have to understand that that's a necessary part of the sport these days, that, you know, there's no hiding place, and you couldn't hide, even though in your mind you did nothing wrong. And you know, the onboard should have come out earlier to give you that reprieve and to give you the chance and the opportunity for people to see, hey, actually, he's innocent. He drove his race. He wasn't part of the massive Lewis Hamilton situation. And that's on. I'm just going to just slightly change the subject, because you've mentioned there about in Germany and you know, what do you think? Because, you know, when we started off earlier in the 90s and whatever it was, there was a severe lack of German drivers. And I remember going to Spa when we had Michael Schumacher that year in 91. One of the things that Bernie was so hugely impressed about when Schumacher drove the car, because I think Winkelhock, and of course you had Mass and you had other great drivers before that, but there hadn't been German drivers. And Bernie said to me, I have increased the footfall at Spa race by 25,000 people extra because there's a German driver in there. And do you think that Germany just wanted to grasp they wanted to love Formula One again, and hence, you know, you're there, but then after Michael, of course, there was Vettel, and, you know, there was the Schumacher brothers, Ralph, of course, who was with me, and, you know, it went from there. I want to know what made Formula One suddenly take off in Germany, which was really a sports car and a saloon car country, if you like, because that's where everybody started from.
It was just Michael. I mean, for me, if I look back to my time and my parent or my dad, that was just pure Michael being a new hero in Formula One, a bit like tennis Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. You know, when they were successful, every German guy was in front of a TV and was watching tennis, and it boomed in Germany massively. And it was the same with Michael. I mean, I was thrilled. I mean, every Sunday we was sitting in front of the TV and watching the races, and it was just a hero. It felt like he's the god of Formula One cars, and that was just incredible. And we had never had a guy like him. And you know, with having RTL broadcasting the races live, I think that was another big boom in Germany, which helped out, and that was just created. And we had at that point 7 Formula One drivers. Later on in my time, I think every young driver talent went through the sort of German F3 championship, being in the DTM paddock. We had like great racing, which everything seems like to fall apart in the last couple of years. And we were this strong sort of platform where every young guy had to go through. And this was all done and created by Michael, and of course after that as well with Sebastian. But the big boom was just Michael being that outstanding guy, winning races by races.
Why is it sort of gone? You know, why don't we have a German Grand Prix anymore? Is it, you know, I hear rumours that because there's a big environmental lobby in Germany, that maybe the younger generation are more conscious of their carbon footprint. But when you've got so many of the great manufacturers, you know, your Porsches and Audis and BMWs and Mercedes, it seems crazy that there isn't a big enough interest to have Formula One there.
Yeah, for me, it's just a political situation at the moment in Germany that the manufacturers are, they don't want to be part of the motorsport anymore because, as you said, the carbon footprint is a big part of it. And it's the political situation that the government doesn't support any F1 races anymore. I mean, I have a very close contact to Hockenheim, and they would love to do an F1 race. But if you run out and you do a minus of 20 million, it doesn't make sense. So they need to find a way to get the support, and unfortunately, we don't have the support in Germany at the moment from the government side and from the manufacturers at the end. I mean, that's the problem, and I think we have great facilities to do it. Now the Hockenheim ring is sold to a private sort of private company, and they want to invest a lot of money into the ring and build it up again and make it more sort of attractive. But at the end, we just need financial background in Germany and financial support to host an F1 race. And again, if I look back to my time, how much support I had in Germany as a young guy. Now the young German kids, they don't have any support in Germany to make their way through to F1, for example. It's impossible at the moment.
Now, of course, just years afterwards, and you've alluded to the fact that you seem very happy with your television and Sky Germany, and it shouldn't be unnoticed that there's a couple of Jordan, because I think Ralf Schumacher is your co-presenter there, and you're part of the same. I can just imagine what's going on there. But, I'm a big fan and a big supporter for Ralf, and of course he followed a similar train. But the thing going forward is Germany needs to be represented at a racetrack, and we have 20, I don't know how many races in the future we're going to have, but not having a German Grand Prix is scandalous, isn't it? I mean, it's the government needs to show. You have now Audi coming in, you have Mercedes, you have all sorts of great manufacturers, and I'm just really perturbed that the people of Germany don't stand up for themselves and say, look guys, we need to get together and make sure we have a race.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally on your side, Eddie. And if you look, around Europe, around us, every other, Budapest, Austria, everyone gets it done. I mean, everyone has a Formula One Grand Prix. Just Germany doesn't seem to be able to do it, and that's, if you look back through the history you have in F1, it's super frustrating. And then there are a lot of fans out there who would love to have an F1 race again, and that's painful to see, definitely.
Timo, before you go, there's just one little question that's hankering in the back of my mind that I've got to ask you. Because the jury is out as to where the likelihood of Audi is going to be when they come in 26. We know that they've signed Hülkenberg now, and that's a positive move because experience is so important, will be so important for them. But I'd like your view. Where do you see, and what would you believe the entry level of Audi is going to be?
I think they have a big challenge in front of them, because you could see this happening with Sauber and BMW having like two factories. One is in Switzerland, one is in Germany, to get the things together, and having the team based in Germany, as we talked about it with Toyota. The top guys are all in England, based in England. It's very difficult to get them over to Germany, and I think they have a big challenge ahead of them. But on the other side, I think they have the power to do it. And with Andreas Seidel being in a position, he knows exactly what it needs to be in a successful Formula One team. But of course, it's going to be a challenge for them. Not expecting them to be straight up there in the first year, but with the experience they have with Nico now, this is a great sign or signal for Germany. Having a German manufacturer with a German driver could boost it up again in Germany, and hopefully we see them up. But I mean, David, it against all the top teams, it's going to be very, very difficult to be right there and being competitive.
Yeah, no, there's no question. No matter what a sort of great sustainable record that Sauber have had within the sport, to bring all of the elements together and compete has been proven not to be an easy task. But great to have them on board. It's great to see that Hulkenberg is going to be part of that. We wait to see who the other driver is going to be. Timo, it's been great. We could continue talking for hours, reminiscing and planning and discussing, but we know you're a busy man. So from my side, I just want to really thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Timo Glock, it was a roller coaster that day. It's one of the highlights of my life, looking back at Montreal and how it unfolded, how you got stuck in the car, how you were placed in the car, not got stuck in it, but, raced it and then scoring points. It was one of those things that if you write a book or you had a look at a video, you would say, no, that's not real, that couldn't happen. And it did happen. And I remember the two of us jumping around, hugging each other. It was just hilarious. All that week, it was just amazing.
A huge party on Sunday night we had, a huge party.
Well, you did have a party. Don't talk about Jordan and parties, because that's the only reason we went racing, so as we could have parties and rock and roll. That was the main criteria of, can we have a party? Can we play music? And that was it, whereas not like that anymore. Timo, a real joy. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Well, EJ, we've put it off long enough. Before we go, we promised the listeners a definitive answer on whether your growl stays or goes. But before we do, some final arguments for and against from the anchors. So the first one is Nick Raymond, and he goes, I love the show and the banter between you both, but you know what I love most? The mighty EJ growl.
Oh, okay. I love you, side. Nick. Well, you're my hero.
Okay, we'll just be patient, because
God.
Pete Groves says, it's time to park the purring.
Oh.
Right?
I hate you.
Well, Johan has a simple message. It says, growl equals plank. And I think he means that you're a plank, EJ. So he doesn't like it. But before you get upset, Richard Malone says, I was absolutely flabbergasted this morning on my way to work, catching up on a podcast I'd missed, to find out people were complaining about Eddie's growl. It, like him, is a national treasure. Please don't lose the growl.
Keep going,
like we lost
DC.
the chain.
I like
it. Would be an absolute travesty. Well, okay, EJ, I know you like that one, but here we go. Cue a drum roll. I can now reveal that our listeners have spoken, and the growl is staying. Over 80% voted in favour. How do you feel?
Listen, it's been a bit of fun. In one way, I prefer it wasn't there, and the other way, I actually think, I don't know how it happened.
How did it start?
Now that it actually starts there, it just depends on how long it's going to stay. So I think we'll give it another couple of 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 seasons. Let's see how long we can actually make it work. But, it's been fun, and it's part of the show, so let's see what happens.
Okay, well, on that bombshell then, that's the end of the show for this week. Don't forget to like and follow the podcast. And there's only one way we can sign Eddie off. Growl loud, growl proud. Mr. Eddie Jordan.
You've been practicing that. Who wrote your script? Arrgh!